I know not only Muslims and other faiths also who believe in one God, same God. We believe in the pre-knowledge of God, which means God is not limited by time and space. Now, once we take this approach, we're going to solve this problem, which means God already knows things before they happen. This is part of his, of course, attributes, because he's God. Now, some may not think it's right what I'm saying, because what are you talking about? How would you know things before they happen? Of course, because we're limited by time and space, and we think everything is under the 24 hours on planet Earth, and we're thinking wrong, because science is telling us the moment you're outside planet Earth, there is no such thing 24 hours. There is no such thing morning, day, and night. That is only on planet Earth, with the moon and the sun turning around itself. So half of the time, half of the planet is under the sun, and the other half is under darkness. Unless there is a moon, there is some light. But in reality, 24 hours belong only to planet Earth. In another planet, Jupiter, Uranus, or any other planet, it could be 8 hours, it could be 12 hours, it could be 72 hours. It depends on how big is the planet and how long it takes to make one circle. So basically, the day as we know it, the night as we know it, it's within the 24 hours, the fixed moon and the months, and of course the year and the 365 days and all these things is only happening only on planet Earth. Outside planet Earth, time is irrelevant, because we're talking about millions of years and it's still going, and the life on Earth compared to life outside Earth is different because of the timing. It's timed, and God Almighty, as we said many times, God Almighty has set the moon and the sun and all these things for us to time and count, you know, and make reckoning for days and nights and months and weeks and years. But again, coming back to this, so is God under the 24 hours? No. God is beyond this universe. God is not limited, as the belief of our belief is that God is not limited by time and space. He's not contained. He contains things. He's not contained by the dimensions where we exist. Of course, now, scientifically, this makes a lot of sense. We're not talking about 24 hours. So how about the day which is 24 hours and the tomorrow and the yesterday? Well, that is only on planet Earth. Outside planet Earth, there is no such thing. So now we ask the question, if God is not limited by time and space, so what is the future and the past? Of course, once you have no tomorrow and yesterday, and you're not limited by the dimension of time, then the issue of future and past becomes somehow irrelevant, because God Almighty and the universe is this nothingness, this now all the time. It's now all the time, not tomorrow or yesterday. So this is very, very important to understand, that God is not limited by time and space. So he has pre-knowledge. He knows things before they happen. His pre-knowledge did not intervene in your free choice. You're responsible. That's why he said, let him he who wants to believe, and let him he who chooses not to believe, not to believe. Let him he who chooses to go this way to do that, and let him he who chooses to go that way to do that. So God Almighty gives us the free choice, the free will, but he already knows what we will do, because he has knowledge of what will happen. Now, sometimes it's really difficult to explain this, because some people still judge God within the dimensions on this earth. And of course, God is beyond earth. And the notion of time and space, these are limited things. And because we're thinking within that little realm of ours, we judge God within our dimensions, which is a wrong thing to do. We will be back after these messages. Welcome back. We're discussing today the issue of destiny, fate. And the issue of understanding the will of God, the divine will, and how we can sometimes we try actually to reason and try to find justification. And it's one of the, I should confess, the most difficult topics to discuss in every faith group, and especially with the youth and what's going on in the world today. However, by shedding some light from a Quranic perspective, we hope to somehow give the Islamic perspective on this issue, especially that it is one of the pillars of the faith in Islam. This is a topic I mentioned, a few verses in the Quran that deal with it and clarify the issue. So we have, on one hand, God says that nothing happens except by His will. On the other hand, God says that we have the freedom to choose. We do our choices and we are responsible. Otherwise, it would make sense that people in the day of judgment are rewarded or punished. It wouldn't make sense, because we would say, well, God, you are the one who made us do whatever. That's why, historically speaking, there were two groups called Al-Qadariyah, and the other ones called Al-Jibriyah. So the first one were called people who refused belief in destiny. And they didn't believe in destiny at all. They said man has total freedom of choice. The other group, actually, is Jabriya, or known as fatalist, people who believe that we are forced to do everything by God, and there is no freedom, and everything is written, and there is nothing we can do about it. Well, the Prophet, peace be upon him, before leaving this world, he actually spoke about such two extremes, and he said, be careful, these people, he called them the people of, black and white. Either it's black or white. So there is no such thing, black or white. There are things that we have freedom and of course the will to choose, and there are things that we have no power over. And I will soon talk about these things. But before we get there, let's review the verse where God Almighty says in chapter 77, verse 30, but you cannot will unless Allah wills. Verily, Allah is ever all-knowing, all-wise. We want to reconcile this one with the one, of course, I mentioned from chapter 18, verse 29, where God Almighty says that let him, the one who wants to believe, believe. Let him, the one who does not want to believe, who chooses disbelief, not to believe. Which means you are responsible for taking this path or taking that path, for doing right or doing wrong, for using your good energy in establishing something good or using the very energy to do something bad. So you are responsible for your actions, because you are given the free will and free choice, and you have made decisions, and people are responsible for their decisions. However, you're not responsible for the weather. You're not responsible for what's happening in the world. You're not responsible for volcanoes. You're not responsible for being born this high or this tall or this short or this big or this small or this color or that color. All these belong to the will of God.